The alternative wellness community, I mean, they were onto SIBO. Now, there's these other... have you heard of the theory Euhemerism? It's a Greek mythology theory from Euhemeris, who was like a philosopher, who basically said that mythological heroes and mythological stories, right, were based on real historical events and figures, but over time they've just been exaggerated, right? And I think this is a little bit what the alternative wellness community are doing at the minute. So these holistic practitioners and stuff, they will take something used to be SIBO, but now even we know that's a legitimate condition, but now it's things like Candida, which is yeast, and Parasites. So they'll take that and make it look like it's the root cause of your problems. And then what will happen is someone will go to their conventional doctor and say, I've seen this online, I think I've got Candida, I think I've got Parasites, and the doctor will just shut them down.
Yeah, for sure.
Say it's nonsense. This is where the truth lies somewhere in between, right? So if you can get an overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestine, surely you can get an overgrowth of yeast.
For sure.
Yeah, right? We know you can get a yeast overgrowth in the esophagus, so you can get Candida in the esophagus. You can get yeast infections, right? Absolutely. Of the genitals. So why not of the gut? And the only problem is it's very difficult to diagnose. We don't have this defined pathway like we do with SIBO, with all the testing. Traditionally, at least with Candida and yeast, so Candida is a type of yeast, but you can get other different types of yeast that overgrow in the gut. Traditionally, the only way of knowing if you have that is to actually do one of those upper endoscopy, take a sample, right, and grow that culture. So there's a group in the States, Satish Rao's group, which found that in people with unexplained tummy issues, but without any immune disorder, that 1 in 4 of them had SIFO, so small intestinal fungal overgrowth. So they actually had an overgrowth of fungi and yeast in the small intestine. But that's the only way to test for it. You can't do a stool test because even 1 in 2 healthy people have yeast in their mouth. It's the part of a normal microbiome, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we've already spoke about how the stool microbiome doesn't reflect the small intestinal microbiome. Some of the wellness practitioners say you can do this D-arabinitol metabolite test. So it's a sugar alcohol that not all species of Candida, but some of the pathogenic ones produce. I'm not seeing any sort of outcome data to show that, but that's one avenue. We're trying to find ways of looking for it at the minute.
How do you get rid of it if you find it?
Well, that's a good question. So we use antibiotics to clear SIBO. You probably think antifungals to clear yeast, right? There's just not a lot of data on that. I would imagine that antifungals are, I don't want to say safe, but they're a little bit less precarious than antibiotics because most of the microbiome is bacteria, right? So if antifungals just target the yeast, you're probably not affecting that as much as you would with an antibiotic.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
But that's a future avenue, right?
That's a future avenue that we want to look down. And then the next is the parasites, okay? So parasites were all the rage. A parasite cleanse was all the rage on TikTok last year. Okay.
Oh, really?
There was a point where my feed was just full of parasite cleanses and people, wellness influencers selling a parasite cleanse, right? So you buy their 14-day parasite cleanse, okay? But here's the thing, right? So there's different kinds of parasites. You've got unicellular, so single-cell parasites like your Giardia and your Cryptosporidium, okay? And then you've got your multicellular parasites, your helminths, your worms. So they're selling this parasite cleanse, 14 days, and they're posting pictures, probably not their pictures, right? Ones they've taken off the internet of someone who's just evacuated a load of worms or what looks like worms at least, right?
Wow.
This
is what they're showing?
This is what they're showing. But to treat, you'll know if you've got a worm infection usually because you'll see them in your stool. To treat a worm infection, all you need to do is take literally one tablet. Yeah. One tablet or a 14-day parasite cleanse with unregulated herbs in that probably tastes like shit, right?
Yeah.
Got to take it 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Don't even know if it works. It's a no-brainer.
So the cleanse was some sort of herbal proprietary blend.
Yeah. Obviously unregulated. God knows if they were contaminated with heavy metals and what. But it was all the rage on TikTok in 2023.
Just as an aside for the listener, if you see proprietary blend on an OTC supplement,
red flag.
Big red flag. Huge red flag. I did a solo podcast episode on this a couple of weeks ago. Do not go near that because it could literally be anything. Yeah. Anything, right?
Huge red flag.
So So what other TikTok things are all the rage at the moment? And
at the minute, it's more just people in grocery stores with the tops off shouting at things, and it's the emulsifiers.
So it's not just you. It's not just you doing that.
No, I don't have. I keep my top on, and it's all positive.
Oh, right. Some people have their top off.
Yeah, I don't. You'll probably know him. He promotes like.
I don't have TikTok.
He promotes a carnivore style diet. He says vegetables are bad for you.
Is this? It can't be. It's not that guy. What's his name? Who got
Carnivore MD? I think is his.
Oh no, I was thinking of this guy called Liver King.
No. Well, it's real. Like if you look into the background, he has share. They both have shares in the same company.
I thought the Liver King guy was exposed as
he
being
was
like
exposed.
a massive like
he was
fraud.
Exposed.
In the context of he was taking like, it was actually hilarious. He was like
thousands of pounds worth.
He was literally like, yeah, I'm natural.
Yeah.
He was like, it's all bull testicles and weights. And then some guy sent, or some person, not some guy, sent in his correspondence with a doctor. And I think in sort of like totality, he was spending like tens of thousands of pounds a month on growth hormone, insulin, steroids. You know, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's what you've got to do to look like him. So comedy. I couldn't. I think. I mean, we all knew, right?
Yeah, we all knew, but it's not. Not everyone does.
Fascinating.
So,
fascinating. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it tends to be more that kind of thing now. But sort of going back to the parasites, there are obviously these other parasites that we can't pick up as well, like the Giardia and the Cryptosporidium.
Crypto, yeah.
Yeah. So they're not that much bigger than bacteria. And what happens is if you get an infection from these, an acute infection, it normally presents like gastroenteritis or food poisoning. So you'll have diarrhea, maybe vomiting. It usually settles down after a few days. You go back to normal, right? If it doesn't settle down, you go to the doctors. Even then, they don't necessarily test for it. They probably just ask you, have you travelled to this location? Have you eaten something a bit, So they'll just prescribe you some antibiotics or anti-parasitic medications empirically. So you don't know if you've had that initial infection.
Yeah.
Okay. But what we do know is that an acute infection from Giardia, Crypto, Blastocystis increases your risk of developing long-term gut health issues like post-infectious irritable bowel syndrome. In fact, gastroenteritis, whether it's caused by parasites, bacteria, or viruses, is the single biggest risk factor for ruining your gut health, basically. All right. So I would argue the best thing you can do is try not to get food poisoning, right? And depending on the kind of bug that infects you, depends on how much more likely you are to develop long-term gut health issues.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So arguably the worst based on the evidence is Campylobacter. So people who get infected by Campylobacter, 1 in 5 of them will still be having tummy issues 12 months later. And 1 in 5 is less than rolling the dice. So imagine you got food poisoning and you roll the dice to see whether in 12 months' time you're still going to be having diarrhea and tummy pain. Yeah, so
that leads me nicely into what do people need to do to avoid Campylobacter and the others? Presumably it's Salmonella.
Yeah, so Salmonella, any like the classic bacterial, E. coli, even though there's the good ones, right? The probiotic ones.
I hear you.
Yeah.
What are the worst culprits?
So yeah, there's Campylobacter, Salmonella, E. coli, those kind of things. I think the main thing is food hygiene, right? Okay. So make sure you're cooking your food properly. None of this raw milk. That's a big craze actually on TikTok at the minute. Have you seen that? Unpasteurized raw milk.
Seen that? Yep.
Straight from the cow.
Yep. I've seen a lot of that.
So I don't deny that it probably has some health benefits because we've already spoken about the health benefits of yogurt and kefir. But I urge you, please do not try this, right? Because it's now the number one source of foodborne illness, at least in the States. I think it's a little bit more difficult to get hold of over in.
A lot of athletes take the raw milk, right?
Yeah. I think Erling Haaland does. Yeah.
I was just about to say.
I was like, mate, you're one batch away from ruining your career, right? Yeah. So.
Oh, it's so funny.
No, I tend to avoid like other raw foods as well. Like I'm a bit. Sushi. I think if I went
Don't say this to me, I'm going for a 12-course sushi tasting menu on New Year's Eve.
I'm so sorry. But no, if you go into the like proper sushi place, right? I'm talking not like the stuff you get from the supermarkets, proper sushi place, I would have that. It's really tightly controlled.
And if it's got that yellow sticker on it that says it's reduced,
do not take.
do not eat. Do
Oh,
not
boy.
roll the dice.
Might sound like a good idea, but it's not. Yeah.
I got you.
So yeah, raw food hygiene, raw foods. Another thing is traveling. So a lot of bugs are picked up when traveling. So traveling to South Asia is the biggest risk factor for developing post-infectious IBS, and they think it's because there's quite a high prevalence of like Campylobacter there.
Interesting.
So being careful when you go away, maybe taking a probiotic before you go to reduce the risk of traveller's diarrhea, taking an intestinal absorbent with you, like Enterus gel. So they work by, if unfortunately you do get sick, or you can take it prophylactically, like Imodium stops you from going to the toilet, right? Stops the diarrhea, but these intestinal absorbents actually stop the diarrhea and remove some of the bacteria and toxins from the gut as well. So they're really good to have on hand.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So take some Enterus gel with you.
Enterus gel has been studied in irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea.
Can you just buy Enterus gel off the shelf, or do you have to order it from?
Yeah, you can buy it from most like Boots and Holland and Barrett and stuff, and online. So we was part of that clinical trial. Actually, it was a huge multi-centre study in IBSD. And there was we were one of the sites for it, and really positive outcomes for diarrhea and other IBS symptoms. So if you have IBSD, I also think it's something worth trying. So I take something like that, hand sanitizer, because you need to be sanitising all the time before you have something to eat, especially before you put your fingers in your mouth, when you handle cash, that kind of thing. So yeah, travelling is another big one, and then food hygiene. Yeah.
Thank you for all of that. And again, you've got lots of amazing content on your social media profiles about this. And I think I saw something as well about dairy at one point. You had a very funny video of someone putting Parmesan on your pasta.
Yeah. Well, next time you go and they offer you Parmesan, if you're lactose intolerant, you don't have to say no, right?
No worries. Yeah, only if you're just sensitive to dairy more generally. Or Parmesan's some cows, so some
the cow's milk. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, test at home before you go.